Earth's natural resources. Examine the groups of trees in the following images. How are these groups of trees similar? How are they different? Trees are renewable resources. Trees can be planted, grown, and harvested for timber. Forests are different, however. A forest is a mature ecosystem. It has trees of different sizes and ages, many other plants, and lots of animals. A forest is a renewable resource, but it takes much more time to grow a forest than to grow a farm that contains only one type of tree. Trees in a forest, trees on a farm. Natural resources. Natural resources can be defined as materials or substances such as minerals, forests, water, and fertile land that occur in nature and can be used by humans and other life forms for survival, as well as cultural and economic gain. Natural resources are not created by people. They are formed naturally on Earth. Renewable resources. Renewable resources can be replaced as they are used. An example is timber, which comes from trees. New trees can be planted to replace those that are cut down. Sunlight is also a renewable resource. Solar panels, like the ones shown in the following image, collect sunlight for use as a source of energy. As long as the sun exists, we will never run out of the energy it provides. Wind is another renewable resource. Moving air can make a turbine spin, as in the following image. Moving air has kinetic energy. When wind hits the blades of the turbine, the kinetic energy makes the blades move. The turbine spins and creates electricity. We can use wind to generate energy today and still be able to use it in the future. Sunlight is a renewable resource. Wind is also a renewable resource. Non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources cannot be renewed fast enough to keep up with human use. Fossil fuels such as oil, coal, and natural gas are examples. We use oil for transportation and to make many materials such as plastics and fabrics. You will learn more about materials made from oil in Subunit 2. It takes millions of years for fossil fuels to form, but we are using them up much more quickly than they can be replenished. Sooner or later, the existing fossil fuels will run out, and it will take millions of years for more to form. Stop and check. What are natural resources? What is the difference between a renewable and a non-renewable resource? Oil. Oil is made from tiny plants and animals that lived hundreds of millions of years ago. The plants used energy from the sun to form energy-rich carbon compounds. As the plants and animals died, their remains settled onto the ground and at the bottom of the sea. Layer upon layer of carbon-based material was laid down. Eventually, the layers were buried very deeply. They experienced intense pressure and heat from the energy within Earth. Plate boundaries are where one plate is sinking under another and can trap a lot of plant and animal remains. Over millions of years, the carbon that made up the organisms turned into oil. Following is a diagram that outlines how oil is formed from living organisms. Ocean 300 to 400 million years ago. Microorganisms that lived in the oceans and seas sank to the bottom when they died. Ocean 50 to 100 million years ago. Sedimentary layers, microorganism remains. Over time, the microorganism remains were covered with many layers of sediment and ocean materials. Intense pressure and heat changed the microorganism remains into fossil fuels such as oil and natural gas. Sand and sedimentary rock layers. Fossil fuels, oil and natural gas. Humans drill through many layers of rock to bring oil and natural gas to the surface so they can be used as fuel or to make other materials. Some of the ancient oceans that made the planet's oil still exist, like the Gulf of Mexico, whereas others have long vanished, like the Tethys Sea, a body of water once located over the current Saudi Arabia. How could a sea disappear or turn into land? As we learned earlier this year, Earth's crust is constantly moving because of energy flow within the Earth. This movement breaks apart continents and ocean basins and rearranges them like pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle. Minerals and metals. Metals can be found in minerals. Minerals are formed by the rock cycle and the movement of tectonic plates. Minerals are solid chemical substances that form naturally under specific temperatures and pressures. Because each mineral needs a specific temperature and amount of pressure to form, they are not found everywhere on Earth. Some minerals form when magma, hot fluid material from below Earth's crust, comes into contact with water. Other minerals form as igneous rocks are being created. Gold medal. One way gold is thought to form is when mountains are formed near a plate boundary. This might be the process that created the gold found during the California Gold Rush. The map that follows shows that many of the major gold rush towns were located very close to the Sierra Nevada mountains. All minerals form over long periods. Most take 1,000,000 years or more, which means that metals cannot be replaced in a human's lifetime. For this reason, gold is a non-renewable resource. Stop and check. Describe the geoscience process that creates oil. Describe a geoscience process that creates minerals. Groundwater. In some places, there's a lot of water beneath the surface of the Earth. This water is called groundwater. Groundwater supplies about 38% of the water used for agriculture in the United States. Groundwater is not as easy to classify as a renewable or non-renewable resource. Precipitation, such as rain, is constantly adding to groundwater. However, it takes a long time to build up a large amount of groundwater, so it is possible to use up all the groundwater in an area before it can be renewed. Water can fall to earth and land in different places. For example, water can hit a body of water such as a river, lake, or ocean. Water can hit the ground, then run off into a nearby body of water. Water can hit the ground, then seep into the ground. When rain falls or snow melts, some of the water moves down through cracks in the soil or rocks. The water moves down in a downward direction because of gravity, passing through the pore spaces between the soil particles until it reaches a soil depth where the pore spaces are already filled or saturated with water. When water enters the saturated zone, it becomes part of the groundwater. A soil or rock formation that is capable of holding enough water for human use is called an aquifer. The following diagram shows how groundwater can form. Groundwater diagram. Unsaturated zone, saturated zone. Water table. Water infiltration, groundwater, bedrock, well. The speed at which water passes through soil depends on the size and shape of the soil particles, the amount of pore space between the particles, and whether the pore spaces interconnect. For example, soils that consist primarily of large sand and gravel particles tend to have large interconnected pore spaces that allow water to flow easily and relatively quickly. In contrast, some soils, such as silts and clays, have poorly connected pore spaces, a soil structure that tends to slow down water.